The 90s were a strange time, full of pogs and fruit striped gum and neon colors everywhere. The Ninja Turtles. Now, I know that there's been another Ninja Turtle movie that's come out in the past few years, but the ones I'm going to be talking about are Ninja Turtles 1, 2, and 3. Yes, we're going to dive into 3. Buckle up. If you were a 90s kid, you worshipped, and if you're like me, you worshipped the Ninja Turtles. You wanted to be the Ninja Turtles. At recess, you were the Ninja Turtles. And so, a Ninja Turtles movie, that's awesome. Going back and rewatching this thing, it holds up. People say that it's a kids movie. I don't think it is. The turtles are cussing. Has to do with like a teenage runaway and people get stabbed. People get stabbed. The way Shredder dies, he falls like 20 stories into a garbage truck. And then the garbage truck gets turned on and he gets crushed. That's some heavy, dark stuff. And come on, Casey Jones? Casey Jones is awesome. His whole shtick is he puts on a hockey mask and throws on this bag full of sports gear.
Hey, man.
That's a man's man. It's a really solid origin story. And if you go back and watch it now, it still holds up. It's a good movie. Alright. So let's move on to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Alright, so the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie was dark and a little edgy in some parts. This, not so much. Let's introduce this cool little hip young kid, delivers pizza, he's quick-witted and he's long hair and he's Asian. Kids like long hair Asians, right? So the Secret of the Ooze is basically the Ninja Turtles discovering where they came from. We find out that there's this company called TGRI. I always heard that and I always thought TGIF. Did anybody else think that? Just me? She comes home back to her New York apartment to where the Ninja Turtles are now living because the Foot knew where they are and trashed their place. So let's live in April's high-rise apartment building. That makes sense. And then she's like, well, where's Splinter? He's up on the roof meditating. So they go up there and Splinter's up there being all wise and splintery. And he goes, there's been something I've wanted to show. I'm paraphrasing. There's been something I wanted to show you turtles for a long time. He takes off the cloth and with the little puppet hands, he takes the two canisters and he puts it together and it says TGRI. And I always thought, why didn't you ever show them this until now? I mean, there might be something important that they should know about. And so they're like, holy crap, this TGRI, they created the zoos. They created who we are. Then there's this whole subplot with Donatello. Donatello, the deep thinker of the Turtles, is like, well, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more. We were just an accident. There's got to be more to it. You know, you got to do that sort of talk. We're talking about the Ninja Turtles. And that is a plot that goes nowhere. So they end up going to the TGRI and they want to find out what this ooze was. And they don't find anything. What they do find is the Foot Clan and an awesome ninja battle ensues. And I use the word awesome in the 90s vernacular because that is what this fight is. Because it's kind of a kid's movie, and this one is more of a kid's movie than the first one was, they're slinging yo-yos around and they're fighting with salami. One is on an office chair and the other one's pushing him along. Surf's up, dude! And, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then the bad guys take the ooze and create their own super mutants. I always thought it was funny because Shredder tells Tatsu, his little right-hand man. And these are the most vicious creatures you could find. And so what does he bring him? A wolf and a snapping turtle. I think maybe, I don't know, a bear, maybe even a tiger, a lion or something. If I were Shredder, I would have been pissed. So they feed the wolf and snapping turtle the ooze. They get all mutated and big and spiky. Toka and Razor. Or Razar. Not sure which, because they say both in the movie. They have one fight in the Foot's junkyard, and they lose that fight. But luckily they have a TGRI professor with them. They create this antidote, and it has to be ingested. Like, they have to eat it? Like, yes. Affirmative. Right on. My man. And so, what better way to get the mutants to ingest this antidote, which will then revert them back into their original vicious states of wolf and snapping turtle, than to put it in a donut and then have them eat the donut. Okay. So then they go to final confrontation number 2. Where it kind of this big, almost looks like an abandoned parking structure. They're like, wait, before we start, we have to perform the ancient rite of the traditional pre-fight donut. Okay. And the Foot Clan all say it wants pre-fight donut, and you know, it's comedy, folks. It's comedy. And so they try to give them the donuts, and they're like, rah, rah, donut, rah, donut. It's my impression of the mutants. But then they find the little ice cube looking brown antidote thing, and they get all pissed off, and they start to battle, and the turtles are losing. The chips are down, and what do you do when the chips are down in the 90s? Who do you bring in? You bring in Vanilla Ice. That's what you do. If you want to save your movies in the 90s, you bring in Vanilla Ice. And that's what they did. Yeah. One of the turtles gets thrown into a dance club, and instead of people running away from these freaks that have just entered this dance club, whatever. Is that the hip lingo? I don't know. And then Vanilla Ice, yeah, while they're battling on the dance floor, that's what you do, Vanilla Ice is like, I'm going to rap about this. But then who shows up right at the end? Shredder. He's got the last little bit of ooze. What takes out the Shredder? Is it the turtles? Is it a big confrontation? Is it Leonardo that finally takes him out? Nope. It's a subwoofer. I'm not kidding. The spear explodes and he goes flying into the docks. So they end up going out and looking for him, and who they find but Super Shredder. He had taken the last of the ooze, and he's all huge and giant, and apparently the ooze also transform your clothes as well. Which I never understood that part, but whatever. And again, what takes out the Shredder? Is it one of the turtles? No. The dogs crash down around him and crush him to death. And so that is pretty much Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, in a nutshell. Congratulations. Strap in, kids. We're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. So now, you have the first one, which was not really a kid's movie. You have the second one, or kind of a kid's movie. The third one is completely a kid's movie. There's like, let's take out everything that was even remotely serious about the Turtles. We're going to throw that all away and make them really kid-friendly. Here you go, Ninja Turtles 3. The plot of Ninja Turtles 3 is basically this. They have to go back in time. They have to go back to ancient China to fix something. I don't remember what, because it's that forgettable. And they end up going back in time in this time travel story. If people go back in time, if 4 people go back in time, 4 people have to come forward in time to take their place. So the universe is all in balance or stuff, or I don't know. Whatever. The people who come back forward in time are these 4 Asian guys, and that's where you get your comedy. Because Casey Jones is now hanging out with these 4 ancient Asian guys, and He introduces them to like bubblegum and video games. I just remember what the plot was. April ends up going back in time because she found this weird little scepter thing in a pawn shop. It just hit me. That's what it is. So they got to go back and rescue April. Leonardo does mouth-to-mouth to a kid. I always thought that was a little creepy. And then they go have this big final confrontation on the back lot of a movie studio, which is supposed to be ancient China. And they end up winning. And then they go back to their time. 4 Asian guys go back to their time. There you have it. That is about as much plot synopsis as I can give you for Ninja Turtles 3 because that's about all it deserves. Alright. So we've talked about all 3. Let's go to the grade scale. Yay! It'd take too long to do them separately, so I'm going to do them as a whole. Alright? 4 things. Acting, story, characters, and effects. Acting, I'm actually going to give a solid B-. All around, I think the acting in general is fine. It's pretty good. Alright, story, overall story. If I didn't have number 3 in there, it'd probably be a B, but with the third one being what it is, I gotta take it down to a C. The third's just not good. It's just not good. Just not good. Alright, so characters. You know what? I'm gonna give my first A. You know who the characters are. They establish them well. You know the individual turtles, their personalities. You know who Casey Jones is. You know who April is. They don't bury any of the leads. You know who these people are and their motivation for what they do. So I'm giving it a solid A. Effects, a 90s B.
Hey, dude!
I'd give them a 2000s C, but a 90s B.
Hey, dude!
Because seeing that was the 90s, they were very practical effects. They were people in suits, animatronics. So for what it was, at the time, it was pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, 2, and 3. When I was a kid, those movies were awesome. Now that I'm older, 1 is awesome. That's pretty much it. But hey, if you want to have a good nostalgic time, go back and watch them. Except for 3. Don't watch 3. Donut! Donut! Donut!